Hi. Cringe. What is it? Why do we fear it? And how is this fear sucking out every meaningful example of humanity we have left in this dimming world?
And I'm not even going to begin to tell you how beautiful you look because that'd be cringy.
I know there are plenty of people who cover this topic, but none of them have my interjecting embarrassing anecdotes.
Let's get it bouncing in here.
That's very necessary. Lest we forget, everyone, this is in fact a video essay, and so we must start with a definition.
Cringe. To feel very embarrassed, and often show this by a physical movement or expression.
Like all good words, meaning changes over time, and cringe didn't mean what it always does today. Cringe derives from the Old English word cringen, which means to give way, fall, usually in battle, or become bent. Cringen or kringon is related to the Proto-Germanic word crank, which also means to bend or yield. When you think about your body when you cringe, there's a very similar physical reaction. According to etymonline.com, English retains the literal sense of the ancient word, while in many Germanic languages, the word tends to have a more figurative meaning, something more of being sick, weak, or frail. By the 1800s, people thought to have quirky, irrational fixations were literally called cranks. This transition over time has a very obvious connection to the emotional aspect of the word we know today. That feeling of first or secondhand embarrassment. It reminds me of watching shows like America's Funniest Home Videos in the early 2000s when I would wait in anticipation for someone to slip and fall or not notice the thing flying towards them before it was ultimately too late, and my anticipated reaction climaxes in an unbearable wince, then mellows out as I wait for the next accident to strike. I'm probably going to butcher this name a little bit, but as Samaya Kalia puts it in the article, A Cultural History of Cringe and How the Internet Made Everything Awkward. A curled upper lip, a wrinkle on the nose, a weighted sneer, a shake of the head from side to side. To cringe is to be in pain. What started out as an empathetic response by one witnessing another's moment of pain, and then evolved over time into a description of weakness, then a categorization of a type of person, eventually culminated into the genre of comedy we saw from the 90s to early 2010s, and now has morphed into this grand social crime, the consequential capital sentencing of the label loser. I'm not here to crucify you for being judgmental in this way. I have very willingly deemed more people than not cringe.
That was so cringe.
But I just find it incredibly hypocritical because I myself have such a deep animosity towards the idea of being called cringe myself, which I think is a sentiment shared across my generation. Jesus said it best.
Let him who is without sin among you be the first to throw a stone. Is that Jesus?
It's like if we prove we are socially aware enough to name what counts as cringe and what doesn't, we in turn cannot be called cringe ourselves. We're in on the joke. And like I said, to cringe is literally to be in pain, and pretty inherently we as humans will avoid pain, physical or emotional, by all means necessary. I think specifically as it pertains to Gen Z's claim over and frequent use of the word cringe, the impulse stems from the hyper-awareness of the self from social media, our complicated relationship with authenticity because of it, and how in tune we are to trends and the speed at which they change. All of these unfortunate out-of-our-control consequences to the progression of the internet are the reasons why you're terrified when you see someone you know in public and outside of the context where you've tailored your perceived personality down to a science. Put your finger down if you feel like you're watching and meticulously analyzing yourself from a bird's eye view during every social interaction. Being in conversation with someone while looking at yourself from a point of view that is from anywhere but your eyes is a little mental and obsessive, and most of us do it all the time. How exhausting. You know how people talk about feeling like they're being watched? Yeah, bitch, it's you. It's you looming over yourself, making sure you behave according to the script you've prepared for yourself. We curate packaged versions of ourselves all the time, namely for the internet. I'm doing it right now. I've spent a good amount of time writing the script, choosing and executing my look, and will spend hours editing it later. But I'm making a YouTube video. What's your excuse? posting a photo on Instagram, sharing a reel about all of the cool or uncool in a cool way things you're doing. We watch and edit and submit and watch and edit and submit and watch and edit and submit to the point where we have a clear enough understanding of the way we're perceived by the world and operate accordingly. Ooh, that was a good crack. Do you hear that? The second anyone's opinion starts to veer away from what we've curated, we get scared. It's a huge blow to the ego. Man, it sure would be great if everyone could just be themselves. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that would solve all our problems, right? Yeah. In 2023, the word of the year, according to Merriam-Webster, was authenticity. I've been thinking about this a lot, specifically because I was at a queer retreat last week. I went to the No Other Festival without knowing what it was. I won the tickets, so I was like, yeah, why not? It's a 4-day, 3-night camping retreat, which advertises itself as a festival that places diversity, inclusion, and empowerment at the forefront of their goals. They focus on wellness within the LGBTQ community and uplift individuals to become the best versions of themselves. Though I have a lot of qualms about the retreat itself, for example, their lack of food, I do think that they stay very true to their main slogan, "Come as you are." When I showed up on the first day, I very quickly realized that this was a space where not a lot of people were like me. It was a very specific subset of mostly woo-woo white wilderness queers. I felt completely out of my element, and I was a judgmental bitch because of it. All of my judgments were internal, of course, but still. I had to question why I felt uncomfortable around people wearing furry parts throughout the camp when I have no problem essentially dressing in the same garb during nights like Halloween. Or why I felt uncomfortable at certain people's expressions of their sexuality when I talk about sex with my friends all the time. Be yourself, but not too much. There's a fine line to Gen Z's prioritization of authenticity and genuineness. I think it's true that we do to some extent value authentic people, acts, and words, especially now as we're constantly bombarded with misleading ads, influencers lying about their amazing lives, Gen AI images, and fake news. With so much noise, authenticity acts as a sign of trustworthiness. People are drawn to what feels real because it's increasingly rare. We recoil to expressions of inauthenticity, such as a bad apology video.
All aboard!
Or people who try to act cool but fail because to be cool, you have to not know you're cool. Duh. But when someone truly comes full force as their authentic selves outside of the specific parameters we deem acceptable, we can't handle that either.
You are still a traitor!
Sincerity in a culture of irony is extremely radical. Making fun of people who try, who fall outside the confines of presentable and otherwise, is an act of enforcing servility and demanding homogeneity from a social group. We don't actually want anyone to be themselves. Authenticity now feels more like a trend than anything else in the way that we and brands have started packaging and monetizing it. But that's a whole other video. Remember when Millie Bobby Brown was America's sweetheart?
I'm just like, yeah, totally. Not that that's how you sound. I'm just like, no.
The things we praised her for during her heyday, being British, outspoken, animated, were the same things that were included in Why I Hate Millie Bobby Brown videos years later.
Millie Bobby Brown fakes her British accent.
Millie Brown's kind of a bitch. We thought so. So we were thinking. So we watched Hot Ones and we're like, she's probably kind of a bitch.
Other popular examples of this happening, and it happens a lot, include Jennifer Lawrence and Anne Hathaway, to name literally such a few. Their own personal performance of likability, or in other words, their personality, went on just a little too long and a little too earnestly. And then it wasn't cool anymore. The crowd eventually, as it inevitably does, turned. We were there, and most likely jumped on the bandwagon, even if purely in thought. I remember seeing videos of people talking about Jennifer Lawrence and how overly expressive she was in interviews and thinking to myself, yeah, she is kind of doing a lot. She needs to chill out. Which is always so wild for me to think about in hindsight. These feelings didn't even come from me, but I caved and, like the rest of my sheeple, followed suit. I conjured a sense of cringe to almost everything I saw her in that wasn't her acting. And it wasn't me cringing empathetically at her falling up the stairs of the 2014 Oscar stage. That would mean feeling the vulnerability of her moment.
I'm sympathy cringing now.
No, it was me gawping at her overconfidence post-fame. How could she be so socially clumsy? Doesn't she know her millennial self-deprecating sense of humor just wasn't trendy anymore? I was cringing at her.
Cringe-worthy.
100%.
There's a sense of superiority there. It's about othering. It's mockery dressed up as sophistication. But like, they're celebrities. They're so rich, it doesn't even matter. I have the right to make fun of them. There's just something about the way they move and they speak. Their style, it's just so cringy. It makes me... No, that's not the title of this section. Angry. Whoa. How does someone else's moment of self-embarrassment make me feel anything that isn't just sorry for them? We discussed how cringe is pain, or brings pain. Well, it can also bring joy. Cringe compilations, try not to cringe challenges, calling someone who is genuinely awful cringe for their weird actions feels great. It all gives us a weird momentary high. We feel relief. At least I'm not that person. We tend to feel joy when what we're cringing at feels far away. Now, when something feels a little too close to home, that's when anger can set in. Seeing an old video of yourself, hearing your significant other say something weird while you're introducing them to your friends and family, watching cosplayers dress up and act like their favorite characters. When we've worked so hard to project a specific version of ourselves, that cringe threatens to unravel it. Oh, why did I used to dance like that? No one can see this video. They might think I still dance like that, not like this. You can't see my feet, but trust me, it's pretty good. Oh my gosh, why did my girlfriend just say that she thinks hentai is cool? What does that say about me? Ugh, I wish these people would stop dressing up like Steven Universe characters. I watch Steven Universe. I would never make those weird facial expressions. Especially when other people mirror something in ourselves that we're trying to hide. We see someone else doing something we secretly want to do, or something we used to do, or something we're terrified of being caught doing. And instead of compassion, we reach for contempt. Which is why I think that cringe is actually really good, actually. I think there's been a lot of conversations about cringe and why it's bad and why we should stop doing it, but no actual tips on how to stop doing it. But the nice thing about cringing is that it helps us learn how to stop cringing. It's super beneficial that our bodies have these visceral reactions to things we deem cringe because it reveals exactly what it is we need to look inward at. Like, again, me at the No Other Festival. I think seeing people in ears and tails made me cringe because I'm jealous of their fundamental understanding of who they are. I often feel, even within my close friend groups, like that there's something so strange or alien about me that separates me from the rest of them. I feel unseen, but I don't even know what it is I want people to see. To confidently walk around in your persona, I believe you have to have a level of understanding of who you are, or at least what you like, what you want others to see, and also the trust that the people you hold close to you will see that too. I think trying not to cringe as much is something I've been working on for a couple years now, and obviously I still have a ways to go, but something I've really started to see is when you do begin the process of letting go of these judgments, you start to see through those who can't help but cringe at everything and everyone. Like, cringing is actually so cringy once you're removed from it a bit. You can see the insecurity and the inability for one to be themselves clear as day. Cringe is the friction between our performance of ourselves and our reality. And there's so much friction because our reality is very messy. We're really awkward, we're weird to look at. We get way into niche things like animation or crystals or musical theater or sports. Nobody wants to talk about it, but people who like sports are nerds. Cringe happens when the veil slips and we forget for even a second to be cool. And in a world where cool has become synonymous with detached, ironic, and algorithmic, forgetting allows us to be ourselves for a moment again. We need to allow one another and ourselves to forget sometimes. And when we catch ourselves falling into that all too familiar bend, pause and think about what it is you're actually reacting to. I wore this outfit today because I really like expressing myself through fashion and sometimes makeup and my hair. And it's been a joy of mine since I've known how to dress myself, but I often feel embarrassed by the styles that I find interesting and want to mimic. So I put myself out there a little bit today by wearing something I think is really cute and a little bit cringe. Okay, that's all I have for you. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you hopefully next week. Bye. I have a whole notes app of embarrassing stories. So one day I was at Walmart, I think at the time, yeah. One day I was at Walmart, this is when I was in Tampa, Florida, and I saw a TikTok where they were like, the best way to figure out if an orange is ready is if it smells very orangey, it smells very strongly. And I was like, okay, I've got to sniff some oranges then. So I go to Walmart, and I'm sniffing oranges, and I'm sure, I'm trying to be discreet about it, but I swear I'm like this. And so someone comes up to me and they're like, hey, how do you know when they're the best ones? And I'm just like, I don't know. And I dropped it and I walked away. So fast too. I was like, I don't know.